So it's my pleasure to see all of you tonight. And because we just passed the Dussehra and Ramachandra Vijayotsava, today we'll be speaking about killing Ravana. But making it very relevant to our situation, because Ravana is a manifestation of lust and very strong desire to enjoy property of God without God. And this is a very common desire in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada was saying that our mission of the Krishna consciousness movement is exactly the same: to recover Sita from the hands of Ravana and bring her to Lord Ramachandra. And he was speaking about himself. He said, Lord Ramachandra is conquered the whole world just with the army of monkeys. So he said, my disciples are also like monkeys, but I'm conquering the whole world with this army. So we may not be so qualified, but because of the serving the Lord, we get all His mercy, and regardless of our disqualification, we can still be useful in Krishna's service. Because we may not be expert, but Krishna is very expert, and He can use even useless instrument in His service. That gifted people, even in this world, they could do miracles even with useless instruments. Like there was one very famous violin player, Paganini, in the history, and he was giving concert, and so many people came to this concert, but there was one man who was very jealous of him, and he wanted him to be completely embarrassed. And that's why he cut all the strings of the violin, but not completely. He half-cut them, so that when the pressure is applied, they would actually break during the concert. And so Paganini was playing his solo on the violin, and everyone was enjoying, and suddenly the strings started breaking. But he was such an expert musician that he continued playing with the remaining strings, and finally, by the end of the concert, there was only one string remaining on the violin. But his expertise was such that no one ever noticed any difference. He could play with one single string as good as with all the strings. So if even gifted people of this world have such abilities, what to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And so that's why we may not be qualified to serve the Lord, but if He is allowing us this opportunity, we should take it up. And basically, lust means energy, and so the same energy, when it is applied for our own sense gratification, is destroying us. But when this energy is applied in the Lord's service, then we are getting benefit. In the same way as you use electric energy properly, you put electric device, you connect it to the socket, you get so much benefit, right? That nowadays we cannot even imagine our lives without electricity, right? Just electric power cuts. cause a lot of problems, right? Because we're so dependent on this energy for so many benefits. But if you put your fingers in the same socket, you get a shock. So it's the same energy, but depending on how you use it, it can either benefit or harm. So in the same way, our energy directed in the service of the Lord benefits us and benefits others, but the same energy, if it is used for our sense gratification, it harms us and it harms others as well. So that's the whole idea, that Krishna consciousness means there is no negation of anything, that we are not artificially renouncing anything. But the principle of Krishna consciousness is that we use everything in the Lord's service. And therefore, we're very happy to have well-educated, professional, and enthusiastic devotees in our society, because you are the future of the world. If you are professional and successful and spiritual, you set a very good example for everyone else. And so in this way, the expectation of Srila Prabhupada from ISKCON becomes fulfilled, because he wanted ISKCON specifically serve this purpose of training up spiritual leadership. And the world really needs spiritual leadership. And so you have this amazing opportunity to get trained as spiritual leaders and then use your knowledge and gifts in the service of the Lord rather than for yourself. And in this way, you can gain so much, not just for yourself, but for everyone. And if we read Prabhupada books, we can understand how glorious was the world's situation when Krishna consciousness was very prominent, right? Especially in Bhagavatam, when we read about the reign of such great kings like Maharaj Bharat, Maharaj Yudhishthir, etc., and Maharaj Parikshit as well, that the world was prosperous and everyone was very successful and happy. And everyone lived in such an opulence that people were decorating the walls of their houses with gemstones. Nowadays, if someone has few gemstones in the ring or earring, that's considered to be opulence already. So we can see that there is no advancement, that the world haven't advanced. Of course, there are so many inventions. So, for example, plastic plates were invented, right? And in Vedic times, people were eating from golden plates. Now we're eating from plastic plates. That's the advancement of our modern civilization. And of course, plastic created so much trouble in the world. It's such a concern on a global scale that plastic is destroying oceans and everything. And so, we can see that lack of spiritual understanding and practices causes all types of problems in this world, because of the very simple thing that if I don't serve the Supreme Lord, then I think I'm God. And I'm trying to act like God, but what is my qualification to act like God? So that's why so many people are messing not only their own lives but the lives of the whole world due to their ignorance, and primarily spiritual ignorance. And therefore Srila Prabhupada came, because he knew that Krishna consciousness can solve all the problems of the world in the same way as the world had practically no problems during the reign of these great Vaishnava kings. Even the rains were not falling during the day to avoid disturbing people. It was even raining at night only. And so everyone was living perfect lives. And I was requested to share some of my traveling experiences, if you like to hear. That our Vedic scriptures are describing that Bharat, what is known nowadays as India, was not just the country we know, but it was covering the whole planet. And these Vedic kings, they were ruling entire earth. And so effectively we can understand that Krishna consciousness and Vedic culture was widespread all over the world. And it is very interesting in my travels to discover more and more of these facts. One of them I shared on Saturday, that the oldest object of religious worship is what they call Lion Man from Germany, and he's 40,000 years old, and this is the age confirmed by the science. Carbon analysis, right? And 40,000 years means previous Yuga, right? Dwapara Yuga. And Dwapara Yuga was known for deity worship. So, and we were saying that near the place where the Lion Man was discovered, there is a town in Germany which is called Narasingen. So we all know about Narasimhadev Bhagavan. And so there were so many other evidences. And of course, coming from Russia and coming across Krishna consciousness, I was very surprised that Russia had its own Vedic literature, Russian Vedas. And I read one book, Russian Vedas, which seemed to be a kind of distorted version of Krishna book, describing all the pastimes of Krishna, how he killed Putana and everything else, just written in an ancient Russian language, so authentic Russian scripture. And many of these people, they don't even know anything about Krishna consciousness. And yes, even the word supreme in Russian language is nowadays, in modern language, is Vse Vishni. And in old language it was Vishni, which is of course coming from Vishnu, right? So the name for the Supreme Lord was Vishnu. And in those scriptures, he is defined as Vishen. And we know that even in India sometimes Vishnu is addressed as Vishen, right? Another name, another way to say Vishnu, Vishen. And so, actually, I wanted to know more, and Krishna fulfilled the desire. So, because we want to know more about Russian Vedic followers, and they wanted to know more about us also. So I was invited to give Bhagavad Gita crash course for them. Many years ago, they still talk about it. And when I came there, I also looked at their spiritual practices, and these spiritual practices are very interesting. They do in the morning daily yagya, agnihotra, but it is little different from how it is done here, because it's Russian style yagya. That priest is standing in front of the fire, and it's a big fire, big logs of wood, and chanting mantras in Old Russian language. And instead of ghee, they pour milk mixed with honey into the fire. That's the, what do you call it, havish, ahuti, yeah. Milk with honey, also quite good. And then at the end, like we put grains, remaining grains into the fire, but they put loaves of bread into the fire, offering bread into the fire. And every time they make an offering, they say, all glories to the Vishnu and his associates, like that. So it's very similar to traditional Vedic worship, because they worship the Supreme Lord and also all the demigods, right? So Russian Vedic culture is the same. They also worship different devatas together with the Supreme Lord. And in the end, it's like our Prem Dvani, but they don't bow down, they keep standing, and someone says, all glories to the Vishnu and his family and his associates. And actually they say family, Vishnu and his family. And then everyone else is saying, glory, glory, and they put their hands in the air like this. So very interesting. Even though it's little different, but you can see still see that this is pure Vedic culture. And because Russia was following Vedic culture strictly, just a little bit over 1,000 years ago. And the only reason why Russia was converted, because one of the kings took on to Christianity, because his wife was Christian. He married one European princess, and she was Christian. And she told him, you have to change your pagan belief into Christianity. So he became Christian. And he became very fanatical Christian, and he was forcing Russia into Christianity. So otherwise, Russia was purely Vedic country. And even Prabhupada was saying in one class that Russia comes from Rishi, because some sages, they were going to the north to perform some tapasya, and that was happening in Russia. So, of course, Russia is very close to India, so it's very easy to see that it was part of the same. I mean, even it is acknowledged that we belong to the same race. It's called Indo-European race, right? So, connection between India and Europe is very solidly established, even in the modern science. They all understand it. And of course, Europe is very interesting. That northern part of Europe, Scandinavian countries, right? Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and it's very interesting. Scandinavian, Skanda, Nava. Because they were very kind of ferocious fighters there, Vikings, right? And so Skanda, who is Kartikeya, right? He was the son of Lord Shiva, who was specifically born for fighting, for defeating the demons. And so Scandinavian, right? It's easy to see the Sanskrit roots. Skanda, Nava. So new Skanda, new place for the Skanda. And spending a few years living in Britain, I came across one research work done by one Prabhupada disciple, Yaduvendu Prabhu, and he made this research on the basis of one work of the 18th century coming from one professor of history and anthropology. And then he made this research into the history of Britain, and he showed how the Druids of Britain, Druids were the ancient Celtic priests in Great Britain, and he showed the correlation between Druids and Dravids, right, of South India. And basically he is listing about 300 correlations between them, including yagyas and shikas and Brahman threads and everything else. So it's very, very clear that Druids and Dravids, they come from the same root. And then he writes about the history of Britain. It's very interesting. If you ever visit London, I recommend that you go in front of the Buckingham Palace, and there is a column there, and you will see a lady standing there, and she is like considered to be the mother of Britain, like Britannia, the statue of Britannia. And on the sides of the column there are 4 categories of people. One is with, one man is with a book, one man is with the weapon, one man is with some bread in his hand, and the other one is with, working tools. It's very clear, the whole Varnashram is depicted. And so he says that the name Britannia, this is the old name for Britain, Brit Anna. So it's basically the combination of 2 Sanskrit words. Brit means to maintain, and Anna means food or feeding. So this was the old name of Mother Nature, whom everyone worshipped in Britain. But even before that, they were worshipping, there is a legend how the entire Britain was saved by a great fish which came to the Isle of Man. There is one place, the Isle of Man, and so it's kind of confusing. Which man? Who is the man? And actually man refers to Manu. And we know this story from Bhagavatam, how Matsya Avatar saved Manu at during the universal flood. And so apparently this was the place where Matsya Avatar brought Manu, Isle of Man, according to the legend. And so there are many things like that. And of course, you have Stonehenge, which is clearly the Yagya Shala of the Druids, and they still go there to worship. Of course, they cannot use it for yagyas because it's kind of protected monument now, Stonehenge. And there are actually many, many such structures all over Britain, like Stonehenge, but less known, less famous structures, etc. So it's pretty clear that all over Europe, Vedic culture was widespread. And of course, Europe is very close to India, in a sense. So it's easy to see the correlations. But then Asia, Southeast Asia, uh, I mean, you don't even have to be a great scholar to see that it was Vedic, right? Starting with Indonesia, with their Garuda Airlines, and the most popular epics in the country being Ramayana and Mahabharata, and most common names in the whole country, and officially it's a Muslim country, right? But still the most common names are Bhima and Arjuna for male, and so also Vedic names for females. It's pretty clear. It's a Vedic country. And of course Singapore, I call it Nara Singapore. You can see that very interesting emblem for the whole country. It's a kind of combination of Narasimhadev and Matsya. Lion with fish's tail. Very surprising. And then, like, who can come up with such a thing? Lion with fish's tail. Well, they have it. This is the emblem of the country. And of course, Thailand, and the old name for Thailand was Siam. And then Cambodia, very easy to understand that it was part of the Boja kingdom, Cambodia, right? And of course, the biggest Vishnu temple situated in Cambodia, which is Angkor Wat, right? How many of you heard of Angkor Wat? Okay, quite a few. I took an opportunity to visit there, and I was very impressed that so many people, they visit Angkor Wat from all over the world. I think it's at least 20,000 of people daily, they go there. And it's a big temple complex. And I was flying on the plane with, the whole plane. I went from Thailand. The whole plane was filled with American tourists. And I was sitting in the same row with one elderly couple. And I said, why did you choose Angkor Wat of all the places to go? And the man said, well, I think we have to understand spiritually what's the meaning of our lives before the lights go out. So I was thinking, this is amazing, spontaneously people, they go for pilgrimage, right? When they have the opportunity. Even without understanding, so it's Krishna from their heart tells them to do that. And it's very well organized that they bring you very early in the morning, and they put you, before the sunrise, they put you, the temple is situated on the island, surrounded by a lake, and it's a man-made lake, perfect shape. And there is a kind of alley way which leads to the main entrance. And of course, temple has 3 domes dedicated to Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, right? Trimurti. And then it is so perfectly built according to Vastu that you stand facing the main entrance, and you see that sun is rising exactly above the central dome. So it's so perfectly organized by Vastu. And then, of course, it was built by the Tamil king, Rajavarman, who had spiritual name, Param Vishnu Loka Maharaj. He was initiated. And Cambodia is so far away from modern India, thousands of kilometers away. But Vedic culture was so prominent there. And all the, walls are covered with depictions of Rasayan and Mahabharata, and also a lot of Krishna Lila on the walls, Damodar Lila, and everything is there. And then basically there are so many tour guides on so many different languages. They explain to the groups that before this country became Buddhist, everyone was worshipping Vishnu in this country. And it was Vaishnava country. And of course, balustrades depicting churning of the milk ocean. There is so much to see there. And in there they have this, I was thinking, my God, like so many people, thousands, tens of thousands of people are educated every single day that the ancient history of our planet is worshipping Vishnu, right? And we should have devotees there. You could preach to people all day long and get a lot of money for that. And at the time there were no devotees. Luckily now there is a group of devotees there who are preaching regularly. They have little ashram. And I was, it's a huge complex. You cannot cover it on foot. And so I hired one two-wheeler taxi. Instead of three-wheelers, they have two-wheelers. They're serving as taxis. So I got one of those. And my driver was taking me around the complex. And there are some Vishnu Murtis inside of the temples all over. And so I went to one temple, and when I came back, that my driver was not there. So then he came out of the temple himself, and I said, "Where have you been?" He said, "Yeah, I went to offer some incense sticks, some dhupa, to Vishnu." I said, "But you're Buddhist. Why do you offer something to Vishnu?" He said, "No, that worshipping Vishnu is very important because Vishnu is bringing a lot of good luck." I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. That despite of Buddhism and everything, people still believe in Vishnu. And then I had some, Maha Mantra stickers with me. Some devotees gave me in Fiji. And I said, "Would you like to chant one mantra for Lord Vishnu which brings unlimited luck?" He said, "Sure, yes, please." So I pulled out a sticker with Hare Krishna mantra. I gave him. And instead of just putting it in a pocket or something, he immediately plastered this sticker over his own speedometer. I said, "What have you done?" He just covered the whole speedometer with a sticker. I said, why have you done that?" He said, "No, I want this mantra to be always in front of my eyes and always chant this mantra." I was thinking, wow, what an enthusiasm, amazing. And then I went into the next temple. When I came out, I saw that my driver, he gathered so many other drivers around, and he is teaching them Hare Krishna mantra by heart. Because they only have one sticker, right? So, but he wants them to also chant mantra. I was thinking, this is amazing, Like Prabhupada described, some people are like wet grass and some people are like dry grass, right? In terms of being receptive to Krishna consciousness. So I was thinking, these Cambodians, they're like dry grass. You drop one spark and immediately it catches fire. There are so many opportunities that, people are so eager. They are completely ready, so just give them and they will immediately take to Krishna consciousness. And so he was driving me around always chanting Hare Krishna. I was getting inspiration to chant mantra from him now. He was more enthusiastic to chant than me, like that. And then I saw so many, researchers and archaeologists doing restorations there. And, Cambodian climate is quite severe, a lot of rains and harsh winds, etc. So all this climate is destroying these structures, these temples. So many people from America and France, especially, and some from Japan, they make a lot of effort to preserve these temples, and especially French people. And I had some interactions with French on book distribution in London, and I found them to be very materialistic, to such an extent that I started avoiding French. If I would see that this is French, I wouldn't even try to stop that person, because they showed very little interest towards Prabhupada's books. But then when I saw that all these French people, researchers, they live for many months in very austere conditions there in, tents, and enduring all these difficulties trying to restore the temples and preserve the temples. I was just remembering, the story of Prahlad Maharaj, how in his past life, he just swept Nrsingadev, old Nrsingadev temple, right? And just because of this service, he became a great devotee of Nrsingadev in his next life. So I was thinking how much spiritual punya these people are getting. They're not only cleaning the temples, but they're restoring Vishnu temples, right? Making so much work. So it's very amazing. And of course, then Thailand is also a very amazing place. That old name of Thailand is Siam or Siam, right? That say, like in here you call Krishna Siam, but you go to Bengal or some, they say Siam, Radhe Siam. So in the same way, Thai people, the whole country was called Siam before they renamed it into Thailand. And so in Thailand it's so obvious that the old capital of Thailand, before they moved to Bangkok, is called Ayodhya. And even today all the kings are called Ram. Ram IX already passed away, so now it's Ram X. And you go to Bangkok and there are, huge murtis of Vishnu and Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman in the central part of the city. And in Thailand, people are worshipping so many devatas, and it's very scientific. They have every devata for every occasion to worship. Like they worship Lord Brahma, whom they call Brahm, with 4 heads, and Brahm is everywhere in Thailand, and he's the Lord of the house. If you want to have a good household, you have to worship Brahm. And you have to worship other devatas for different purposes. But in the morning, so many Thai people, they go and worship Ramachandra and Vishnu. And you ask them, why do you worship Rama and Vishnu? And they say, there is no any specific cause, it's just tradition that we have to worship. So somehow, even if they don't have spiritual knowledge, but they understand that worshipping the Supreme Lord should not be materially motivated, right? It's just dharma or duty. It's for spiritual benefit. And yeah, it's very, even though it's considered to be Buddhist country, But still, the king in his palace is doing yagyas, and he has Vedic brahmanas doing all the yagyas for him. And even if you go further to Japan, there are actually temples with Krishna in Japan. And of course Vishnu, you go to old capital, Kyoto, and there is a emperor's temple there. And in the emperor's temple, there are of course so many Buddha murtis, but the front row is Vishnu, Lakshmi, Shiva, Parvati, Garuda is there, and I think Indra and Vayu on two sides. So it's, in Japanese language, it's Sanju Sangendo temple. And no one can explain what all the Indian gods doing in emperor's temple. Like that. But it's so obvious that Japan was Vedic. And actually there was, before the Second World War, there was a law protecting the cows, that cow slaughter was as bad as manslaughter, right? Was treated by law with the same severity as manslaughter. So it's very clear that Japan was fully Vedic culture, fully Vedic country. And then I haven't spent much time in Africa, but living in London, you get exposure to every culture of the world. And sometime I was very surprised because I saw a number of times African people, black people, but they were dressed in Indian way, that men wearing Punjabi style dress with turban and ladies wearing saris. First I was thinking these are devotees, but then I was dressed like that. They didn't even pay much attention to me. And I saw they don't have any neck beads, so no tilak. So I realized not exactly devotees, but why are they dressed Africans? Why are they dressed like Indians? And then I wanted to find out more about it. And then I saw one man dressed like that in the temple, actually chanting japa. So I approached him. I started asking him that, obviously a devotee. So I started asking, is this Indian dress or African dress? He said, no, this is our national African dress. And I said, but why it is so similar to Indian dress? He said, well, because Africa was fully Vedic. And he happened to be university professor who was traveling around and giving classes or lectures on the Vedic history of Africa. And he told me a few things about it, including that the original god of Africa is black flute player. So, and of course the most remote place is America, right? And I heard that American natives, funny enough, they were called American Indians, right? There was some similarities between Vedic culture and American spiritual tradition, but then that school, Gopati Prabhu mentioned in the beginning, is actually meant for Western countries to encourage professional devotees to start their own social spiritual projects. And one Mataji, joined our school last year, and she comes from Native American family. And she told the story how she became a devotee, which was very interesting because her mother is very prominent Native American spiritual teacher, and she was expecting her to become spiritual teacher as well. And she is very prominent. She is even teaching chiefs of the tribes spiritual knowledge. But then when she was young, she didn't want to do it. She wanted to go away from it. And then she went to one festival, and devotees were there in the festival. And she said immediately she became attracted to Krishna consciousness because of striking similarity between Native American traditions and Vaishnava traditions. And she was telling us that Native Americans had Mangalaratik every day. They had japa. They had deity worship. All the food was meant to be offered to the deity, and deity of the Supreme Lord also. And many tribes were actually vegetarians. And so she said, it's very, very similar, but she said Krishna consciousness, of course, is much more prominent and much more clear in terms of spiritual knowledge and everything. That's why she decided to take up to Krishna consciousness. But then her spiritual master and few senior devotees were telling her, because in America there is so much interest towards Native American spirituality, why don't you teach people Native American spirituality, but only those parts of it which are very similar to Krishna consciousness? And in this way you can make people interested in Krishna consciousness through Native American spirituality, which is a very interesting approach. And after attending our school, she decided, okay, this is going to be my project. We called it Native American Spiritual Revival Project. And of course, whatever is happening in this country, United States, is affecting the whole world. So potentially this is a great project, not just for America, but for the whole world. And so in this way, the more I travel around the world, the more I discover how much it is true what Srila Prabhupada describes in his books. And so we just have to make little effort to educate and train people all over the world and help them to restore their glorious past. And of course, India is the country which preserved most of it, most of the knowledge and most of the practices. And so, therefore, you are the generation of future leaders who are meant to do that. And of course, especially India, right? That if India preserves and develops it very nicely, then it will automatically spill out to the rest of the world. So, I hope it was not too boring. You've learned something new. So, if you have any questions, we still have little time. We can discuss. Microphone.